I'm back with another sponsored video. This one is about Supernanny Joe Frost. Now, disclaimer, there is discrepancy with her birth year. So some sources are saying 1970, other sources are saying 1971. I did look at both of the charts and I'm siding with 1971 because that chart has stronger Leo themes, Leo rules children, and that 1971 chart is more chaotic, which would fit her profession. Just being a nanny and having to help out families in crisis and children that are behaving badly and so forth. So I'm going to go with the 1971 chart. So let me just read a bit about Jo Frost before I get into her chart. So Joanne Frost is an English television personality, nanny, and author. She is best known for the reality television program Supernanny UK, in which she was the central figure. The show first aired in the United Kingdom in 2004, and she has branched off into several other reality shows in the United Kingdom, United States, and the Netherlands. Family SOS with Jo Frost addressed issues such as addiction and abuse. Family Matters is a talk show. She has written 6 books on childcare. So she grew up with one brother in Southwest London. Her father was an English builder, and her mother, born in Gibraltar, was an interior decorator. Frost had a happy, physically active childhood. Because her father was interested in history, she frequently visited a number of castles and museums as a child. Frost's mother died of breast cancer when Frost was 24. Okay, so let's get into her chart. This video has been sponsored by Chelsea. Thank you, Chelsea, for sponsoring this video. Chelsea wants to know, you said, is this her true calling in her life? Why does she never have her own children? Is there anything in her chart indicating that? Is there anything challenging or toxic she's had to deal with in giving to people, families in this way? Was the show Supernanny overall a positive experience for her? So I will be answering these questions as I go over her chart. So let's get into Jo's numerology. So she was born on June 27th, 1971 or 1970. But again, like I said, I'm going with 1971, considering what's in that chart. So her birth number 27 breaks down in 9. That produces strength. And she is displaying strength on the show or shows. Also, 27 can bring personal acclaim. It's a very positive number for the most part. It can produce a warrior spirit, and it can cause her to lead with sensitivity and compassion. The 2 and the 7 can bring forth the sensitivity and compassion, and the 9 pertains to leadership. Seeking out families who are in desperation mode. So her life path number is 6. So 6 is dealing with money, which she earned a lot of it through these shows. Also love, relationships, counseling, and advice. And the peacemaker. Also 6 is dealing with methods that she uses. So she has Sun conjunct Mercury in Cancer. And this is dealing with her being a global parenting expert. Emphasis on parenting expert, because when you have Sun conjunct Mercury, a lot of times you want to be an expert at something. So parenting, that's Cancer, Sun conjunct Mercury, expert. TV series, the TV series is represented by Mercury, that takes place in homes involving families and children. The Cancer is the family, the Sun is ruling children. Also, this is representing her motherly, nurturing nanny energy. Also, it shows that she takes a gentle caring yet persistent approach with children. Not even just the children, the families, period, the parents. Dealing with emotional children. Knows how to get to the heart of the issues involving children. So this quote right here deals with this conjunction. My career began nearly 4 decades ago with the opportunity to support families professionally in the different ways they needed, from maternity nursing for those families who were coming home with their newborns for those crucial first 6 weeks of transition, and parent craft, to professionally nannying clientele who appreciated the support of all that entails the hire of an educated carer for their children. So here's her chart right here. So she has a Leo South Node and Moon in Leo, which is representing her involvement with children. And that South Node in Leo has a lot to do with why she hasn't had children of her own. I'll get into that more in a minute. So again, here's that conjunction between the Sun and Mercury in Cancer. So that is nanny energy. That's her focusing on families and helping families. Also, she has Mars in Aquarius, conjoined to the Aquarius North Node. She has Jupiter in Scorpio, conjoined to Neptune in Sagittarius. Venus in Gemini, Saturn in Gemini. The Gemini influence is representing the books, but also her communication methods, teaching. She has Pluto in Virgo, Uranus in Libra, and Chiron in Aries. Unfortunately, I couldn't find her birth time, which makes sense because the birth year is in question. So here she is talking to one of the troubled families, mother and daughter. And she very much looks like a Cancer. So also with this conjunction, supporting families has always been very organic for me. And my natural gift with this children as an intuitive, empathic person has allowed me to bridge the gap energetically between child and parent, allowing an authentic flow of expression, love, and connection for all. And you notice she put love in there. That's that 6 life path number. Also, this quote, I believe family is the centerpiece of this table called the world, and my mission is to educate families worldwide so that the impact of such empowers them confidently to lead. Now, that quote makes me think that her Sun and Mercury are in the 9th house in Cancer. And she's talking about worldwide. So her South Node is at the 16th degree of Leo. And that combination, a 16th degree of Leo, can play out as troubled children. It reminds me of the whole old woman that lived in a shoe motif. So she could be coming from a past life with the South Node representing past lives. She could be coming from a past life where she had a lot of children and maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe she had children that were troubled in some way. And 16 pertains to shoes. That's why I was like, this reminds me of the old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. Being on camera with children, with the 16th degree representing camera, filming, video. Also, this is challenge with having a child of her own. Also, this shows that she is leading with compassion and empathy because that 16th degree can produce compassion and empathy, also sensitivity. Sweet dreams start with a simple routine. So she has Chiron in Aries, trining her Leo South Node. So this is one of the strengths in her chart. One of the things, one of the aspects that shows what comes easy to her. So this points to her being an award-winning entertainer, having a way with children, teaching training that centers on children, because Chiron can be a teacher, Chiron can be a trainer. So this quote right here, "Hi, I'm Joe Frost, the #1 global parenting expert when it comes to families and parenting." And she says it very much with pride. And you know that Leo is dealing with children, but also pride. And her basically saying, I'm the #1, that would be Chiron and Aries. That's from her website. Here's Joe and her husband. I'm not sure what his name is. Kind of looks like that designer Rick Owens right here. So she has Venus and Gemini sextile Leo South Node. So this is representing the TV series involving children. TV series is represented by Venus and Gemini. Children is the Leo South Node. Teaching style or methods for children are successful. So Venus and Gemini is her teaching style or teaching methods. And again, Leo rules children. Her communication style with children is effective. Also, this represents her being a New York Times best-selling author. Also, where she's in demand as a public speaker. Venus and Gemini trine Mars and North Node in Aquarius. So this is representing Joe attracting a following and fan base due to the TV series, with the TV series being represented by Venus and Gemini, and Mars and North Node in Aquarius representing the following and fan base. Inventing teaching methods. So inventing, that would be the Aquarius end, and the teaching methods are represented by Venus and Gemini. Also, this represents her website that provides advice, books, and newsletters. So the advice, books, and newsletters is represented by Venus and Gemini, and her website is represented by Mars and North Node in Aquarius. She also has Venus and Gemini sextile Chiron and Aries. So on her website, she wrote that she's best known for her international award-winning show, Supernanny. So emphasis on award-winning, because Chiron and Aries is representing the award-winning, and her show is represented by Venus and Gemini. Also, this represents the use of certain catchphrases or cliches that have caught on or have become commonplace on the TV show. Now, I haven't really gotten into the Supernanny show. While I was preparing for this video, I did watch a couple of episodes so I could see like how she is in action and how she works with the families. So my assessment from what I've seen, it does seem like she's effective. It does seem like she does really care about these family and children. It does seem like she does have a positive effect, but at the same time, it is TV. So you got to take this with a grain of salt. And I'm not bashing her or anything, but I'm just saying from what I've seen, it looks like she, you know, does pretty well, and it looks like this is her calling. I will say that. So to answer that question and those aspects I just went over shows that this is her calling, even though she has a Leo South Node. And you know, the South Node can deal with where you have become either an expert or very experienced in that area. It doesn't mean that you need to dwell in that area too much. And so it makes sense that she hasn't had children of her own, because if she did, it would be too much dealing with other people's children and having children of her own with that Leo South Node. Saturn and Gemini trine Pluto and Virgo. Teaching effective discipline techniques. Also, this is representing the influential TV series Supernanny and the other TV shows. Receiving royalties, which is represented by Pluto, through books that are of the self-help genre. So that Pluto and Virgo, Virgo is the self-help, and the Gemini is representing the books. Her shows being in syndication, and basically where this is representing her licensed material that gets her money in perpetuity. So here's that trine between Saturn and Pluto. It's a dissociative trine, meaning it's involving signs that normally when it trine each other, but due to the distance of these planets, it forms a trine. So if Pluto was in Libra, it would be a natural trine. Here she is right here trying to console or reason with an upset child. But you could tell this was just photo posing and stuff. Jupiter in Scorpio, Neptune in Sagittarius, sextile Pluto in Virgo. So this is where we're getting the term super nanny. Now, Cancer very much can deal with nannying, but Virgo is really the sign of the nanny because Virgo does rule babysitters, caregivers. Cancer could be a caregiver too, but Virgo being employed to do it. Providing a service and being a nanny, being a babysitter, being a guardian, that's part of that. So the super is coming in from the Jupiter. So super nanny energy represented by this aspect. Techniques that are effective in gaining control. Major transformation takes place via psychological and therapeutic techniques. This quote right here pertains to these sextiles. My practical, supportive, and down-to-earth advice has been helping families shine since 1987. So here's the sextiles right here, Jupiter and Neptune, sextile Pluto. Sun and Mercury in Cancer, square Uranus in Libra. Upsets within family. So this square can represent some of what's going on in her life. So this square can represent her just not having a strong need to have children of her own, to become a mother of her own. But it also is representing what she's encountering when dealing with these families. So upsets within families. But this also shows where she can be emotionally detached, which is a good thing because that's needed when dealing with situations like that. Opting out of becoming a mother herself. So with these squares, on one hand, it could show that there could be a problem with her carrying a pregnancy the full 9 months, but it can also be a conscious choice on her part not to have children. This quote right here pertains to this square. As a woman, you get to make the decision either on your own or with your partner. You don't need an excuse. And besides, spiritually, I have millions of children. So she said this in response to people questioning her about why she hasn't had children of her own. This quote right here also pertains to these squares. I'm a couple of weeks late, but I do agree that I don't care for everything she does. Watching it right now and multiple times, I have seen her basically pit a child against their parent, which to me is extremely wrong. So this is where she could be receiving backlash or where people could be objecting to her methods or her manner of helping these families. So she has Sun in Cancer, sesqui square Mars, and North Node in Aquarius. And this can manifest as shocking and unsettling scenes of children's behavior, but also where some of the storylines could be invented for shock value. So the storyline centering on children is Sun in Cancer, with Cancer representing stories, and then the shock value being Mars and North Node in Aquarius, and also inventing. Rearranging the layout of some of the homes or using different homes for the TV series. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some phony stuff going on. And it makes sense because that's how TV is. We can't expect it to be totally natural and organic because they will be doing things to boost ratings. or to make things seem different than what they actually are at times. Now, she may not be as nice and gentle as her image portrays, because this Mars and North Node in Aquarius can cause her to be cold at times, even very dictatorial. Dead set against having children of her own. So again, these are other aspects that support the notion that she purposely set out not to have children. Family SOS with Joe Frost. Now, her Leo South Node is opposing Mars and the North Node in Aquarius. So this can produce a challenge with having children of her own. So let's say she really wanted to have children, which I believe she really doesn't. This can still produce challenges with being able to either get pregnant or carry a baby to full term. And if she was to have children, she could end up dealing with some serious issues with children. Like she could have a child with special needs. She could have a child that's very rebellious. So seeking rebellious children. So the Mars part is basically her seeking these children out so that they could be on this television show. Of course, it's not her alone doing it, it's the production team, but of course, it's her show. So children are being sought out, children that are rebellious, that create upset. Also displaying shock at the children's behavior. So I noticed in the beginning of every show, she's like on an iPad and she's looking at scenes of the family in action, the family that she's about to visit. And you're seeing the children all misbehaving and screaming and hitting each other. And Joe is all shocked even though she's done this a number of times, each time she's seen, she acts like she's shocked. So that opposition deals with that. Aiming to change the behavior of children, being an instigator in a number of situations involving the children. Now, again, it's necessary for her to be the instigator because she has to basically change the family dynamic. But when she does come in and change the family dynamic or attempt to change it, of course, the children are going to become upset. Even the parents become upset in some situations because they're resisting the change or they're questioning her methods. So, being an instigator, that's very much Mars in Aquarius. And then that North Node in Aquarius just exacerbates that. And it can also show that sometimes the instigation is a bit too much. And again, it could be to get ratings for the show. Being an antinatalist. So again, this goes back to what I was saying about it's not so much about the children per se, in my opinion, in terms of Joe Frost's mission. I believe she's more of, no, we need to have a better society. And in order to have a better society, these children need to be kept in line. And again, in a very gentle way, she does it. But with this opposition, it can very much show that she's very much against having children of her own. So she could, but she could be an antinatalist, period. Like maybe deep down inside, she really don't want people to procreate at all. Or maybe she feels like a number of people shouldn't be procreating. But again, I feel the same way. But I'm not an antinatalist, but I do feel like, of course, and I think most, if not all of us feel this way, that there just shouldn't be some people shouldn't be allowed to procreate because of what happens when they have children. But again, this can show that she's very much against having children of her own. And and it may not even be an active anti-natalist position on her part. It could just be that she just doesn't have that, instinct to have children. That Mars and Aquarius, North Node in Aquarius can take away that instinct. And with Aquarius ruling liberation, it can show that she rather be fully liberated than to be tied down with children. So being liberated trumps her desire to have children. Moon in Leo square Saturn. So this is one of the aspects where she may not be as nice as she comes across. But this is also representing other situations. So this can show that some of her discipline ideas are not effective long term or are oversimplified. And some people have, criticized her about that and said that some of her discipline methods are dated as well. Some may accuse her of exploiting these families for views. So I've seen comments where some people are accusing her of that. Making a conscious decision to not have children of her own. So as you can see, so far, she has a few aspects that are showing why she doesn't have children of her own. Moon square Saturn can produce challenges with being a mother, challenges with pregnancy, and in some cases, the woman may not have a strong urge to have children. That instinct to become a mother may just not be there. And with Saturn being in Gemini, this can deal with a conscious decision to not have children of her own. And you see, it's at the first degree of Gemini. That first degree reinforces the children theme. This quote is pertaining to this square. However, as someone who's not a mom, this is one of the comments of this post that I think I got from Reddit. It says, however, as someone who's not a mom, she seems to have a do what I say and don't question my method attitude. I mean, I agree. Parents came to her for help. They should just try her method. But asking about something does not mean the mom isn't going along with it. So this is basically saying that she feels that Joe Frost doesn't like to be questioned. Like she doesn't like her discipline methods to be questioned. And that can be very much this moon square Saturn. And again, it can be part of her mean streak. This quote right here, no, as a mom, I find her techniques outdated and authoritarian. Another quote, many of these children have such severe behavioral problems because they lack connection with their parents. Isolated time out does not create an opportunity for the child to learn how to work through and process big, difficult emotions. Depriving a child of the opportunity to do this is damaging. Now, while I think some of these people that made these comments have certain points, I believe, like this last comment, I believe that this person was kind of being overly sensitive. This moon square Saturn is the epitome of putting a child in timeout. And she's called the timeout spaces like the naughty step, the naughty bench, things like that. But moon square Saturn, epitome of putting a child in timeout, with that moon being in Leo, Leo representing children. So here's that square right here. Saturn in Gemini opposition Jupiter in Scorpio and Neptune in Sagittarius. Now, Saturn in Gemini opposing Neptune in Sagittarius alone is pointing to the discrepancy with the birth year, because Saturn rules time and Gemini is documentation, it's reports, it's data. And it could be because maybe she's lied about her age at some point. So that Saturn opposition Neptune can deal with someone lying about their age. But it can also deal with her having to travel extensively, which she has. Also, she was using her card from the UK for the first few seasons of the US show, which points to that. Television execs could have her compromising her morals or ethics for ratings. So Saturn and Gemini is representing the television executives, and Jupiter and Neptune in Sagittarius is representing the morals and ethics. Exaggeration and fabrication of the situations on some of the episodes for ratings. Challenges with the publishing of books could be an issue with her royalties or advances. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was an issue where her receiving due payment for a book, or maybe more than one book, or there was an issue with her publisher at some point, because Jupiter and Sagittarius rules publishing and Gemini rules books. I'm sorry, you might hear a lawnmower out there, a leaf blower. So she has a fixed T square in her chart. It's involving her moon in Leo squaring Jupiter and Scorpio, Mars in Aquarius squaring Jupiter and Scorpio, and the moon in Leo opposing Mars in Aquarius. So some of what could occur with this fixed T square, chaotic households with children at the center, facing pushback from some of the parents of the children, facing judgment for her outdated child rearing methods, shaking things up in terms of family dynamic, operates in terms of absolutes when it comes to children, seeking out families with children, going toe to toe with some of the parents of the children, championing children will always be at the heart of everything I do, but that can create problems with the parents. And that's that fixed T square. Could manifest as miscarriages. So if she wanted to have children, this fixed T square can produce serious challenges with her ability to have a child. You tell me. All right. She also has a Thor's hammer in her chart. So the Thor's hammer in particular is one of the reasons why I'm going with the 1971 birth year instead of 1970, because the Thor's hammer is not present in the 1970 chart. And because of the nature of her work, her always having to deal with these chaotic families and unruly children, it makes sense that she has this Thor's hammer in her chart, because Thor's hammer can deal with outrageous situations where you are looking at somebody like you have the audacity to do this, situations where somebody could get hurt, badly behaved people, people who could be unhinged, including children, because that moon in Leo is involved. So with the Thor's hammer, we got a square between the moon in Leo and Jupiter in Scorpio, Neptune in Sagittarius, a sesqui square between the moon in Leo and Chiron in Aries, and a sesqui square between Chiron and Aries and Jupiter and Neptune. So this Thor's hammer is representing the chaotic households with children at the center, facing pushback from some of the parents of the children. So it's operating very similar to the T square, but this Thor's hammer is even more chaotic. Now, you asked, did she find this type of work rewarding? This Thor's hammer can show that while she did find some aspects of the show rewarding, and her, contributions to making these families operate more efficiently and effectively, this can show that there were times where she was really having a tough time dealing with the families. It can even include dealing with the film crew, represented by Neptune and Sagittarius. So this could play out as loss of a child, miscarriage, or inability to have children. So again, if she wanted to have children, she could be facing an uphill battle with this Thor's hammer because the Leo moon is involved. Seeing badly behaved kids acting out, displaying disgust towards the children and their parents. And this Thor's hammer, I was looking at it, I was like, this is like some Hansel and Gretel energy. Hansel and Gretel is that, fairy tale about this witch that entices children into her house because the house is like covered with candy and treats and stuff. And her whole goal is to bake these children in the oven and eat them. Now, I'm not saying Joe Frost is the witch, but I'm just saying this Thor's hammer is basically making me recall Hansel and Gretel, just because of the negativity that is infused in this Thor's hammer aspect pattern. So while she may not be the witch, she might have seen one of the mothers or even the father as the witch, and how they were basically really permanently damaging their children, and where she had to step in. Even though this does kind of look like Joe Frost right here. Let me stop. Of course, I gotta be a little lighthearted about stuff. Nice nails. All right. So actually, This picture right here is kind of making me think of that Thor's hammer in her chart because, or I won't even say the Thor's hammer, but this is very much Moon square Saturn energy that she's displaying right here with her being on the cover of, well, I don't think it's a magazine. I think it's just a promotion or whatever, but it looks very dominatrix like. And she's really showing this no nonsense persona in this picture. And you can basically see that she does have a mean streak, which is indicative of that Moon square Saturn. I mean, and look at the red and black, which are satanic colors. And again, I'm not saying she's satanic or she's negative or bad or anything. You know, we all got a dark side. So this is basically kind of where the dark side is kind of seeping out of her a little bit with this outfit, this get up. And the interesting thing is I talk about Cancer women being very receptive sexually, but sometimes they may want to play the role of the dominatrix every now and then. So with her being a Cancer woman, she's displaying that whole little dominatrix energy that is within them. So I wouldn't be surprised if she does, you know, dominate her husband sometimes in the bedroom. I actually like this picture though, but it is kind of disturbing when you think about her being a nanny, and especially with this little teddy bear. Again, it's kind of giving off that Hansel and Gretel energy, like I said, but more so representing that Moon square Saturn in her chart. So she got another Thor's hammer in her chart involving Mercury in Cancer, squaring Chiron in Aries, Mercury in Cancer, sesqui square Jupiter in Scorpio and Neptune in Sagittarius, and Chiron in Aries, sesqui square Jupiter and Neptune. So she got two Thor's hammers in her chart. But again, it makes sense that she would have them in her chart considering the nature of her show. These families in crisis, these children acting like little hellions. So again, that's why I chose the 1971 chart over the 1970. So with this Thor's hammer, this can represent being verbally abused or encountering instances of verbal abuse. So I've seen a couple of episodes where like one of the little bratty children will be like, "You're a bitch," or like one of the children was like, "My sister said you're a bitch." And so there have been times where Joe has been on the receiving end of some verbal abuse. You know, just being, and also where, you know, she'll get into a yelling match sometimes with the father of the children and stuff like that. So it's very much dealing with this. Her ego can get in the way of her ability to remain sensitive and empathic. So her ego is represented by Chiron and Aries. And people with Chiron and Aries, they could have a very fragile ego. This quote right here is dealing with this Thor's hammer. So this is a comment from somebody. I think I found it on a Reddit post. It says, like, she freaks out whenever someone questions something and says they are arguing. So that's very much dealing with this Thor's hammer. Can represent the times when she was overwhelmed by the acts of aggression and violence in the households. Also, mental wounds are being inflicted. So it could be where she's seeing these mental wounds being inflicted upon the children from some of these parents, but maybe what mental wounds are being inflicted upon her because sometimes it can be just too much, you know, negative emotions surrounding her. And her being a Cancer, having Sun and Mercury in Cancer, I'm sure that can be a bit too much for her at times. Problems with the film crew. They could aggravate the families and perhaps even Joe at times. And again, these TV producers, they're very much about ratings. They're all about ratings because it comes down to advertisers and money at the end of the day. So of course they're going to do things to provoke the families or even to provoke Joe at times just to make the show more interesting. So here's this what I'm talking about with these Thor's hammers. Young girl loses it at Joe. Girl attacks Supernanny. Also with this Thor's hammer involving Mercury and Cancer, this is showing where she can't always say what she feels like saying due to judgment she will face due to being on camera. Now, she's already faced some issues with posting on Twitter and Instagram because some of the parents have basically clapped back and was like, you talking about my child and, you have no idea what you're talking about and things like that. Now, this quote right here I got from a Reddit post, and it's just coming from the perspective of children that were on the show or anybody that knew a child that was on the show, and how are they as adults. So this person wrote in and said, my family was on the Swedish version of this show. There's a lot of retakes and stirring up drama to make it seem like it's all good when they are leaving. They turned mine and my sister's fake fighting into something that was completely different on TV. They told my mom how to behave around us and tell us what to do. If we asked to go and eat our food in the living room, my mom actually said no to that, but the nanny said yes, they can. And my mom had to repeat from that. We also got locked into our house during filming. We got to leave for 1 hour during lunch when they went to lunch. I was to create conflicts that they could later resolve. At the end of the show, they made it seem like everything was all right, and the nanny was the best thing to happen to this family. So again, a lot of chicanery going on, like where they're provoking these situations and trying to get a rise out of the family, and even Joe, very much represented by these Thor's hammers. And more about the Thor's hammer. Jo Frost has been criticized by families and professionals who accused her of parent shaming. So the parent shaming is coming in through Mercury in Cancer, Sesqui square, Neptune in Sagittarius. Supernanny Jo Frost has come under fire from parents over comments she made about children's behavior in school. The school theme is represented by Mercury, but also Mercury is representing comments. And when you have Mercury in Cancer, it's very easy to say what you feel, but you might often, or I won't say often, but you might sometimes get yourself into hot water by saying what you feel. Cancer is one of the more realer signs in terms of like just this is who I am, like this is how I feel, especially because everything is based upon how they feel about things. And you can't help how you feel about things. So if she talks about, I feel this, or I feel like family should be doing this, sometimes she could end up facing backlash. It says most children given the proper guidance at home and school have much success and learn to recognize themselves when they need to take a moment to reset. But it seemed to only add fuel to the fire, with one mom replying, wow, so I'm not giving my autistic daughter the proper guidance at home? Thanks, Joe. Life's hard enough without you parent shaming people and speaking in an area you clearly have no experience about. So some people, she feels that her comments were misinterpreted about children being given the label, or no, it was, this one was about, because she got into a couple of heated disagreements online about her views on certain things, and this one was about how it was something about schooling and kids needing to take time out to reset. And she was basically saying, she kind of made a blanket statement saying that, I'm trying to see if I included it in here, I don't think I did, but she kind of made a blanket statement saying that school is basically good for all children, and if a child's having a negative experience with school, then they just need to go, take a break and reset. And some of the parents of autistic children were saying, no, for some children school is horrific. So her response was, most children given the proper guidance at home and school have much success and learn to recognize themselves when they need to take a moment to reset. And then the response, but it seemed to only add fuel to the fire, with one mom replying, "Wow, so I'm not giving my autistic daughter the proper guidance at home? Thanks, Joe. Life's hard enough without you parent shaming people and speaking in an area you clearly have no experience about." And another adding, in the context of ND kids, saying they need space to reset themselves, I think that means neurodivergent kids. Correct me if I'm wrong. Space to reset themselves as if they're being ND is the problem, is 100% victim blaming. Exactly how much power do ND kids have over changing the environment that's causing the problem? Also, this TV star Joe Frost has faced a backlash on Instagram after writing a post about kids' behavior and how parents label it. Joe, 52, who shot to fame in 2004 as Channel 4's straight talking super nanny and now works as a global parenting expert, uploaded a pic of herself on her grid with the following words captioned over it. Today is the 21st century. People want to banish the word naughty. They say it is a negative word to describe a child's behavior. Yet we want to desperately label our children ADD, ADHD, ODD, and every other ABCD. So this is what I mean. She's saying exactly how she feels, but really didn't think about how she could face backlash for saying this. So it didn't take long for people to react to the post, with many SEN parents angered by the post saying ADHD is a diagnosis, not a label. Every other ABCD questioned one of her followers. This post is disgusting. While you may have meant it about children slash adults who are not neurodiverse, it certainly doesn't read like that to those of us who are neurodiverse or raising children who are. This is one of those moments where you step off of a high horse and listen to the people with a diagnosis who are telling you how wrong this sounds. Another wrote, an insensitive post, really. All the ABCDs are not labels, they're diagnoses. So here's that infamous post that she made that got some parents stirred up. Seriously, asked a third, we aren't desperate to label our kids. We're desperate to get our kids a decent and inclusive education. Someone else wrote, yikes. A diagnosis is not the same thing as a label, and it certainly isn't a synonym for naughty. As a parent of neurodivergent child, I find this post really insensitive and honestly pretty disgusting, replied another of her followers. And look at her, she's like, really? Whatever. Y'all tripping. In terms of her asteroid, she has moon parallel Apollo. And Apollo could deal with where you are hard-headed, where you are not learning from your mistakes. So this can deal with her dealing with obstinate children and families. Moon contra parallel Atlantis. Atlantis can produce a sense of impending doom. So this is representing her, the parents who feel doomed and who are coming to her for help. Moon parallel Hygeia. This was representing the health and hygiene issues with some of the children on the TV series. Sun contra parallel Achilles. Achilles is basically dealing with your weak spot or where you are vulnerable. So she's basically vulnerable on social media, and that is why Achilles is in Aquarius. So this could represent social media posts that get some mothers riled up. Sun contra parallel Follis. Blowing the lid off of situations involving families, but this can also deal with where she's sharing her feelings about things and all hell breaks loose with some of the families or mothers that follow her. Mercury conjunct Cupido. Being loved for her TV series and for her words. Venus conjunct Nessus. Accusing some of the people of being abusive because Nessus represents abusers. So there's been times where she's looked at videos or even seen it happen in front of her eyes where the parent might be too rough with the child, or there was one episode where the father pushed the child off of the child's sibling and Joe was calling that abuse and things like that. Mars contra parallel Siwa. This is another aspect that is representing her not having children. And with Mars is basically representing where she sets out. Her aim is not to have children, more than likely. So this could show where she's against having children of her own. Jupiter opposition Fortuna. This can represent royalties from licensing deals, and this could be a big part of her fortune. Saturn contra parallel Icarus. Her words could lead to her downfall if she's not careful, with Saturn being in Gemini. But this is also representing, in my opinion, the episode about the house fire. Because Icarus can deal with fires, getting burnt. But no, I don't think anybody got burnt in that story, but that's a theme. Chiron conjunct Eris. Eris deals with strife and discord, anger, aggression, and violence. So this is basically what she's encountering when she has to intervene with these families in crisis. Chiron contra parallel Estrella. There could be a possible lawsuit or court case at some point. So that concludes my reading on Super Nanny Joe Frost. Thank you, Chelsea, once again for sponsoring this video. And if anybody would like to sponsor a video, you can send me an email. Just put sponsored video on the subject line and just let me know who you would like me to do a reading about. And I'll let you know how much the sponsorship fee will be. If you like a reading, you could go to my website. The link is in the description section, and I'll be back with more videos soon. Peace.